Hey there, folks. Welcome to episode 26 of the Fundraising Bright Spots podcast. My name is Rob Woods, and this is the show for anyone who works in charity fundraising and who wants ideas for how to raise more money, really enjoy their job, and make a bigger difference, even during the pandemic. And if you're the leader of a fundraising team and you're looking for ideas to help your colleagues keep learning during these difficult times, then I hope you're going to find today's episode interesting. Because today I'm sharing an interview that I did with a very smart, proactive fundraising manager named Stevie Nicholson, who's an area fundraising manager at Diabetes UK. And we're going to focus on a particular strategy that she and her colleagues have implemented to boost morale and improve learning across the fundraising department. In this session, Stevie explains how her strategy came about, the difference it's made for her colleagues, how she made it less time-consuming to prepare, and 4 practical steps she recommends to anyone who wants to try something similar. I found Stevie's proactive, hands-on approach really inspiring, and I hope you find it helpful too.
This episode of the Fundraising Bright Spots podcast is brought to you by the Bright Spot Members Club. As a practical alternative to one-off conferences and courses whose impact can fade all too quickly, the Members Club is an online resource that gives you ongoing access to a whole library of video training courses, monthly coaching webinars and live training events. It's all designed to help you learn, enjoy your job and raise more money. To join the 300 fundraisers already in the club, or just to find out more, go to brightspotfundraising.co.uk.
Stevie Nicholson, how are you?
I'm good, thank you, Rob. How are you?
Very well, thank you. I've had a good day in a relatively good week, so I'm feeling fortunate during these difficult times. How's it for you juggling, homeschooling, childcare, all your professional responsibilities? How's that working out for you?
Interesting. Biggest challenge yet. Being teacher and full-time worker is definitely a new challenge, but one we are desperately trying to overcome.
Well done. As long as we're just hanging in there, I think a lot of the time that's just good enough to do well enough on both fronts. So Stevie, I've known you for a few months and had the pleasure of working with you for 3 or 4 months through the Corporate Mastery Programme. Let me get your title right. You are Area Fundraising Manager for Community Fundraising for Diabetes UK. And so I've met you via the Corporate Mastery Programme you're on and the Bright Spot Members Club that you access as part of that. And you mentioned to me recently how you've been using some of the things I teach through that programme and through the podcast and the Members Club. You've been very proactive in realising there's an opportunity to help your colleagues at Diabetes UK keep learning, and that's really been working out for you, and your colleagues have been loving it too. So I wanted to record a short podcast to find out a little bit more about what you've been doing, how it's been working out, just in case people who listen to this podcast could see a version of that they could do for themselves in their own charity, especially while everyone is in lockdown. So just to start the story, do you want to tell me what you said to me yesterday as to how this idea started and what you did?
Absolutely. So I think it just came off the back of attending your course and feeling, so engaged and inspired to move forward, that I wanted to share that knowledge with my own team, but equally with the rest of the fundraising team within Diabetes UK. So on the back of that, I got together with a couple of other colleagues that are attending your course, and we put together a presentation to deliver some of the content from your course. And we knew we had to do that virtually, so we did. And we put together a quite short presentation of around an hour, just going through some of the content, for instance, idea generation sessions, so batting around different ideas of how we can engage our supporters in this time where fundraising wasn't the key of everyone's mind, and equally where people were struggling to find an alternative to their fundraising. So they wanted to keep engaged with the charity but not quite sure how to support us. So we wanted to do a session on that, and equally just really encourage speaking to one another, sharing wow moments, creating a folder for our stories, so regional stories about how we're engaging with our supporters, what the outcome was, and sharing that within a central drive so that everyone has access to it, because we realised on the back of this session that we didn't have anything that was easy to grab hold of that was very relevant to each of our regions. So we wanted to put that together.
Okay, so well done. So in particular, one of the bits of content from my course you saw was valuable was the story content and how useful it is for all fundraisers to have more real examples at their fingertips. So as I understand it, you put together a mini presentation, a highlights session from that content, and you taught it on virtually to your teams, your colleagues at Diabetes UK. And how was the response?
Yeah, so that's exactly what we did, Rob, and the response was fantastic. So people really got on board with the storytelling and getting excited behind the stories that they had to share, and equally really wanted to share them, and loved the idea of putting it together so that we all could use them when speaking to our supporters, and they were very real to us because they were coming from our peers and from each other. So that's what we did there, and fundraisers were so excited for doing that, and equally shared that they would find that really helpful in their day-to-day jobs, especially in this current climate, to share those stories to keep our supporters engaged.
Great. So well done for taking action and realising now more than ever, under pressure, we need to find a way to keep learning, keep adapting, keeping improving our technique as fundraisers. But then secondly, I understand that you got such a positive response that you felt that you couldn't just do a one-off and you needed to do more. So what was your next step?
Yeah, so it was a snowball effect. So it went so well and the feedback was so well received that people wanted more of the content from the course and wanted some more ideas and wanted to come together to discuss something different to the current pandemic and various different other things that are going on. So it seemed a shame to stop there. So then what we decided to do is come together and think of new ways of keeping up the momentum of the training and some of the content of your course in particular. So then what we decided to do was what would be a really simple way of keeping the momentum going. And what we came up with is by using your podcasts. So had a look at the podcasts that were available and looking at the content and then set up an invite virtually to listen to those podcasts. So a podcast once a week, listen to it, or everyone set that time aside. It's in everybody's diaries. And then straight after, we all reconvened in a virtual room to discuss the highlights and the topics that were discussed in that and how we could, as a charity, move forward with that content.
Fantastic. I think one thing that's smart about this is when learning doesn't work very well, it's when we're a bit rushed and we read a book or we go on a course and we hear a new idea or a new example or a new way of working, but so often we don't pause and in a deliberate, structured way reflect on it and decide how to implement. So as I understand it, a simple thing you're making easier for your colleagues is you're getting them some content that you believe was helpful. And then crucially, B, you're then putting in that virtual meeting directly after it, in which anyone could just think through out loud the 2 or 3 ideas they've got based on that they could implement. So they're more likely to get a good idea for how it could apply in their world, but also to then make a decision for something to actually take action on. I think that's the step of the learning loop that often gets missed if we just rush from listen to something, read a blog, and then go straight back to work. We never actually make a decision and adapt a new idea to how it could help us do our fundraising.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of getting everyone together to listen to it and then equally putting that separate session in straight up afterwards to speak about it and make a clear action of how you can move forward, and equally get excited about how you can move forward after listening to it, because now more than ever people are encouraged to listen to podcasts and to do training, but how are we doing that and how successful is it and how are we measuring the results of doing that to make it feel worthwhile our time? And I think there's something special in all listening to the same thing and going along with the same action at the end. So yeah, I think it's been fantastic to do that, and equally we've had some great successes of it.
Oh, right. So I was gathering this, it's picked up a kind of a momentum there, and it wouldn't have done that if it was just a nice to have. Do you want to tell me a couple of examples of how you know it's making a difference?
Yeah, so we've had some really great examples. So we've had a few sessions now, and we're going to continue putting those in there. But for us to share a couple of examples with you, one of which was one of the fundraisers on the back of listening to podcasts between you and Ben, decided that actually they were going to be braver, they were going to be bolder, and they were going to pick up the phone and they were going to re-engage with a supporter, a corporate supporter that they'd had in the past. And on the back of that, they have agreed to work with us with a partnership that's worth £5,000, which she believes she wouldn't have got hadn't she had it in the back of her mind to be braver and just take that step and action it now rather than later.
Fantastic. So congratulations, Stevie. No wonder your directors are so positive about the fact that you've taken this initiative, and it's actually a thing that's proactively your organisation is doing to help your whole organisation step up and keep being bold during quite a difficult time. If you're getting results like that, I wanted this to be a relatively short podcast, but do you want to share just one more example that gives you a sense that it's having an impact?
Yeah, so this is a non-financial success, but equally as important. So another really great comeback off that was one of our supporters had made a call and just decided that they were just going to, again, rather than send an email that lands in an inbox that's never ending, just pick up the phone and speak to a supporter. And that particular supporter said that it made their day, as it was the first person they'd spoken to all that week. And it just brightened up her day, brightened up the supporter's day, and equally made us all smile. So yeah, I think that was a really good success off the back.
That's absolutely brilliant. And it is exactly what Ben and I were talking about in episode 19 of this podcast, is that lots of these calls are not going to lead to money. They shouldn't even be about money. They are about reaching out and caring with people who have been good to our organisation and cared about our cause. And if that's the reason you call, A, you'll find it's so much easier to congruently and confidently pick up the phone, and B, so importantly, you'll be able to tell people are pleased to hear from you. You genuinely are caring about them, and in that connection, in that moment that you did a good thing that day, I think it's really hard to put the phone down and not be more buoyed up than before you made that call. And I think right now there is no resource more important to people who work for charities right now than our morale. Obviously, money is important. Obviously, delivering services on the front line is important. But step one is if we're feeling really down for understandable reasons, it's so hard to raise money or deliver frontline services. So anything that a charity is doing proactively, deliberately, in terms of an organised process like you're doing that increases the morale of its teams, I think has to be good, not only for ourselves, but also for the beneficiaries that we serve. And I think that was the other thing I really liked about your strategy, which is that right now, understandably, many people are having some difficult days. You know, one's mojo might not be as strong with all this pressure and these worries that many of us have. One of the things that can help a person feel more hope, feel more optimistic, feel better about themselves and about life is if they feel they're learning, they feel like they're making some kind of progress. They're not completely stuck and powerless. And I think a reason your initiative is, week on week has really picked up for Diabetes UK is you're creating that 1 hour where as many of your colleagues as possible are being given help to do some learning. So A, that's going to help their fundraising, but B, it can't, if nothing else, it's going to help their sense of morale for the rest of the day. And secondly, sooner or later, this lockdown and the other difficulties are going to fade away. Let's hope. We have to presume. Whether that's weeks or months, we need to, as well as solve the short-term problems, we need to be proactively preparing ourselves so that, we're learning and our skills are sharp and our confidence is in a position so that when it's easier to do more face-to-face fundraising and other proactive things, my view is if we're finding time in each week to do some learning, we're more likely to be ready to really do that and do it well. Whereas if we succumb and just try and only firefight, I think it's going to be harder than ever when life gets back to normal for us to be at our best. I don't know if that's part of your view of why this is really working for your charity.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, more than ever, people's well-being are paramount to successful fundraising and, continuing to work. And I think that's the beauty of it. Everyone coming together to share their ideas and to be engaged and to go out there and speak to their supporters and feel like they're part of making a difference, especially in this current climate, to the charity is so important. And it's definitely the feedback we've received and just feeling like part of one team. It's brought our teams closer together. So rather than working in silo in different regions, we've come together better than ever to come up with these great ideas and learn together in unity, which is great. And equally, we've never had as much sharing in terms of sharing successes and sharing all the great things that we're doing and great stories we've got that most of the time in our normal day-to-day jobs in the normal world, shall we say, we might not have shared and probably wouldn't have done. But now those stories, they mean so much and they pick you up where we're looking for stories to pick us up. They are doing that, and it's just brilliant.
Fantastic. And I guess that's the closing of the learning loop, whereby you need not only a new idea that inspires you to want to think differently, you have time to reflect on it and work out if you're going to apply it and if so, how. Then someone needs to take action. And then crucially, they need to reflect again and reflect for themselves on what they learned and or share it back into the system so that as a team, as an organization, you get smarter. The fact that you're including that extra bit of the loop where they can share those victories back within your hourly session, I think that's a really smart thing that you're doing, because it's those extra new examples that, if someone hears that example you told me of someone whose day was made because they made a call, or someone who got a £5,000 partnership because they found a way to pick up the phone, the resharing of those, what I would call bright spot examples, has a magical impact on our own belief that it's worth keeping going even when times are hard. So I love the fact that you've included that bit in your system.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing, everyone's really feeling that at the moment. And now, why wouldn't we take that time to share, to work together, to learn new things and prepare ourselves for the future, for, different challenges we're going to have ahead. And if we can come together to learn and to think of new ways to work together, then why wouldn't we do that?
And I said I was going to try and keep this call relatively short, so let's not go into detail. But I loved what you were telling me yesterday about how one of these sessions helped you and your colleagues to think medium term, long term, to start working out ideas for the autumn and ideas for what you're going to do this Christmas in a way that probably wouldn't have happened had you not had the stimulus of the initial stuff you were listening to or you were learning from. If someone's listening to this and they've already enjoyed a couple of podcast episodes or they're a loyal subscriber and they're thinking, okay, well, maybe I could do a version of what Stevie has done for my little team or large department, even if they're now kind of relatively obvious to you, could you just make clear 2 or 3 of the tips that you've learned from making this work so that we can make it that bit more likely that a listener can follow your example?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first step is just be brave and go for it and do it. So first point of call is just go, right, okay, I'm going to put this together for, like you say, my team or my wider team. I'm going to put the time in the diary. I'm, just going to put it in there. I'm not going to worry too much about, who can do what and timings. I would just put it in there for a reasonable time that people can join. I would then make sure that the content is relevant. So the podcast that yourself do, Rob, look at that, look at the descriptions, make sure it fits within your organisation or within your team, so that it's really going to resonate with the team, so that they're going to get something from it. put that time in there, and definitely put the additional time in there to reconvene, to discuss the content and any highlights, and equally put in some actions. So if, for instance, you do an idea generation session, what does that look like? Are you going to create a folder? Are you going to come back the next week and discuss how you're going to move those things forward? So kind of always had a measure at the end of how you're going to measure the success of the calls, and equally keep getting feedback from your team if they like it or what they need to change, and let it adapt as you grow and you keep learning.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for making time at short notice to record this. It's really re-inspired me that these ideas are kind of spreading more and more because people like you are proactively doing this kind of thing. And best of luck with your whatever fundraising challenges you're facing for the rest of the week. Stay safe. But for now, thank you ever so much for joining us for this quick episode of the podcast.
Oh no, thank you very much, Rob, and thank you for everything you and Bright Spot are doing.
Thank you so much, Stevie. Stay safe. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
So there you go. I hope you found Stevie's story interesting, and perhaps it even got you thinking about ways you could help your colleagues to keep learning by trying something similar with fundraising content that you find useful. If you liked the episode and want to make sure you don't miss future ones, please remember to subscribe to the podcast today. If you'd like more ideas to help you succeed during the pandemic, then I'd love for you to make use of my new ebook, Power Through the Pandemic, which gives 7 key strategies to help you raise money, even now, through major donors, corporates and trusts. You can download it for free from brightspotfundraising.co.uk/power. And if you found our discussion helpful, I'd be really grateful if you could take a moment to share it on with your colleagues or on social media. Stevie and I are both on LinkedIn, and I'm on Twitter at @woods_Rob. Finally, thank you so much for listening today. I know it's not easy to find time and space to keep learning, and indeed helping others learn, when you're under pressure, and I hope you found it useful. Until the next time, stay safe, and good luck with all your efforts to make a positive difference.